Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Pensacola, Florida, you're listening to Core Dialogues Radio, presented by ID Group, where thought-provoking conversations and thought leaders meet on the air. Every Thursday at 4 p.m., we hit the airwaves with forward-thinking ideas, philosophies, and questions, connecting our listeners to ideas that will get you thinking. The answers are in our studio. Now, here's your host and whole systems branding expert, Dr. Mona.
Welcome to today's edition of Core Dialogues Radio. We're streaming live every Thursday right here from the Business Radio X studios in beautiful and right now very hot downtown Pensacola, Florida. I'm your host, Mona Amadeo, and you can listen to us every week live at Core Dialogues at businessradiox.com and stay connected with us and our guests through our blog at Core Dialogues Radio. And that is dialogues with an S. So I want to make sure everybody knows that. Like, if you're like me, you just, want to make sure you get the S in there. So just a little bit, this is our second show. We're glad to be here. Last week, Keith Hoffert was on and really shared his story of his entrepreneurial success and taking the leap from being a chef to an entrepreneur. And he's doing some really cool things. So if you want to, again, hear Keith and what that story and his story, you can, again, go back to our Core Dialogues radio.com and read our blog and listen to that. So a little bit about what we're doing here at Core Dialogues. We believe that organizations and people in those organizations have a real power. There's nothing really more powerful than organizations to really impact the world. Sounds a little cheesy. Yeah, okay, I'm a 60s child, but that's what we believe. And so what we're trying to do here every week is to connect people who have ideas, big ideas that can inspire, that can motivate, that can really help you do the things in your business and in your organizations that you want to do. So join us here every week, and that's what we'll be doing, is bringing some really interesting people here to the air for you. Before I get started, I want to just say a big thank you to our creative team at ID Group. We now have a logo. We are official. You're never really official until you have a logo. So I want to say thanks to the creative team for doing that for us. And we really like it and hope you will too. You'll be seeing it around, hopefully a lot over the next several weeks. So to kick off the show, I want to ask you just a couple of questions, or maybe one question. And it has to do with, what you believe these following companies might have in common: Amazon, Apple, Disney, Google, Harley-Davidson, Hewlett-Packard, Lotus Cars, Maglite, Mattel, and Yankee Candle Company. So some of you are probably very familiar with some of the first ones that I mentioned, and these represent some of the most successful companies in the world. But what you might not know is that these companies also all have something else in common. They started in a garage with one idea, a lot of energy, and some real creativity on the parts of the people who started that. And so they produce some of the leading entrepreneurs that we all know about today. And so that's what our program really is about today. We want to talk about entrepreneurism. We want to talk about creativity. And we want to talk about how you, the listener, can kind of tap in to the things that can help you be more creative and more innovative in answering some of the questions that you face every day. So, some people think in terms of entrepreneurs and innovation comes from passion. Maybe it's about an overwhelming desire and love for what you do. There's a lot of drive, determination, and others certainly have to have leadership. So all those things are part of it. But what the research is showing us increasingly at the heart of really innovation and entrepreneurism is creativity. And so many of you say, well, you're either creative or you're not creative. But again, the research is saying quite the opposite, that creativity can actually be taught. And as we face more and more issues and challenges in the world today, really helping people tap in to our creative abilities and our instincts is something I think worth talking about. We have someone here in our studio today, Rick Duke, who has something and can probably share something with us about this. He knows a little bit about creativity, entrepreneurship, and what it takes to really launch an idea. And Rick is the founding director of the newly formed UWF Center for Entrepreneurship. And Rick will be in charge of kind of forging the path for the future of entrepreneurship and what comes out of UWF. So he'll be creating programs and initiatives that really is designed to develop, support, urge, prod, whatever you want to call it, the idea of entrepreneurism. And Rick brings to the table just a depth of information, a depth of experience, a depth of knowledge in this field. He comes to us from the University of Georgia Tech originally, where he was for like 25 years. He also was a director of Economic Development Institute there that was recognized as one of the country's innovation associates in 2005. And where Rick and I first met each other was that we were talking before the show started, about 6 years ago at the University of Southern Mississippi, when he came in to lead the founding of the Trent Lott Center for entrepreneurship at the university. He subsequently went to Southern, I don't think they'd like that. Went to the University of Mississippi, where he did some work there, leading the innovation incubator there. So we are just very, very fortunate here at the university or in Pensacola to have Rick come back and lead the efforts here. So Rick, welcome. I'm so glad to see you, and I'm so pleased.
Always great to see you.
It's always fun. We have some good conversations. And interesting, Rick and I were having lunch. It's probably been several months ago now when he first came back to Pensacola at the Ruby Slipper, which is, by the way, an excellent breakfast place here in Pensacola. And we really got on this topic of what he's doing and some of the ideas that he's birthing and kind of incubate, if you will, at the university. One of those ideas is we hear a lot about, Rick, we hear a lot about entrepreneurship, but I know that part of what you're doing at the university is looking at not only just entrepreneurship, but this idea of intrapreneurship. So I think just to get started, give me a little bit about what the difference is, and then how you're taking those ideas along with others to really form the foundation of what will be and is, I guess, the university's Center for Entrepreneurship.
Mona, it's great to be here. I'm a big Steve Jobs fan. I'm a Mac. My wife and I both are big Mac product users and everything. So it is believed that Steve Jobs is the one who coined the term entrepreneurship, and he did it as a part of or an outcome of the work that he and his colleagues were doing developing the Mac. Apple at the time had other products, and he took a group of people, entrepreneurs, if you would, and went to do R&D and product development and came up with the first version of the Mac. So the term entrepreneurship is a great term. It's probably often misunderstood. And I will also tell you, try to type in entrepreneurship in an email or in Word. And it almost won't let you, particularly if you capitalize the I. It's going to spell check. It's not going to let you.
They don't know the word.
Which really says something,
doesn't it?
That for an Apple product, not to let you put in the word entrepreneurship. So it's to me, it is a perspective which says that one can produce in an enterprise a culture of entrepreneurial thinking without having to have a new startup company. That in fact the word innovation, which I really like better, the word innovation plays so much off of creativity. So creativity is actually coming up with ideas, and innovation is doing something with the ideas.
That's a good way to look at that,
And one of those things that you can do in innovation, one of those things, is you could have a new startup enterprise, a fledgling firm. Could be one person, two people, etc. But that's probably not where the biggest slice of the pie is. That in fact, innovation, the companies that you mentioned, and a lot of other companies, all you have to do is sit in front of the TV for a while or listen to radio. And the word innovation within the corporate environment has become so commonplace. mean, they expressly, like a company like Under Armour, which had some great ads recently, along with SAP, international company SAP. The founder of Under Armour, he's an entrepreneur. I get it. But he describes his company as an innovation company. So they're doing things every day to compete globally and to push the envelope regarding information and who their customers are and what can they learn about their customers' preferences. So they're an innovation company. So almost every enterprise that will sustain itself, that will survive, is an innovation company. So I lump them all together. I say that it is a spectrum, in fact, from idea to innovate or acting on the idea. Some of those become new products, new services, different ways of doing things in the corporate environment. And some of those may be spawned into startup companies.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's really interesting is that when we think about innovation or entrepreneurism, that's we automatically go to the idea that it is about creating a company. But really, it's a way of thinking that builds on this seeing things a little differently, looking at things a little bit, solving issues, solving problems, or we could say taking advantage of opportunities. And so it's not necessarily about creating a company. It's about creating new ideas. Is that a good way to say what you guys are kind of looking at?
It's really, it's the process of creating ideas and acting on the ideas. Or some people might say monetizing the ideas.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to have a monetary outcome, but often it does.
Yeah.
But it's acting so that you're influencing the metrics of the enterprise that you're a part of. We're either doing better in this regard or increasing this, or market share has gone to this. But yes, it can be a new startup enterprise. But I think if we focus on just that, we're missing the bigger opportunity. And that's, in fact, the way the Center for Entrepreneurship was first envisioned by Quint Studer and people at the university. They laid out a broad, inclusive definition of what entrepreneurial thinking and innovation, the roles that they play in the whole process of a culture of entrepreneurship, if you would.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is there is a method to this madness, that there is a way to teach people how to bring this kind of thinking inside their organizations, or as you said, or kind of take it within themselves somewhere else to create a different kind of enterprise. But within the enterprise itself, because I know Quint, for instance, the founder of or not the founder, but one of the people who gave the initial, I guess, grant, or not grant, but gift. Thank you, to start this idea. Quint, the seeds of his idea started within a business that he was a part of, that later he had an opportunity to take forth to a company. So, you can do a lot within a company, contribute to that company, but that also may form the seeds of something else moving forward.
That's exactly. And I describe Quint this way, and he and I haven't sat down, and he hasn't officially endorsed me describing him in this way.
Okay, well, let's do it anyway.
So, but I have read the book that he gave me, and I understand some of what his career was about. So here's how I would describe it. Quint is inherently a creative individual. And I say it this way because I don't believe one survives as a special ed teacher for 10 years without pulling out every creative idea out of your bag of tricks.
Yeah, any teacher.
And then he went from that role to one in the private sector, in healthcare, in marketing. Do people who do marketing, are they creative people? Yes. He went from there to business development for the same hospital system, and then had a chance to take over a hospital, and he innovated. He became an innovator by doing things that were, I would argue, fundamental good management practices, but not practices that had been practiced. So, so innovation doesn't always have to be technology. It, in fact, can be the approach of management and leadership to how they run their business and how they engage their employees and how they tap into the ideas that those employees have about how can we do things better.
Yeah.
And then he went through a series of steps at Baptist, where I would argue he became what is called, he was a corporate innovator to becoming a corporate entrepreneur because Baptist launched their own consulting practice, okay, in healthcare. And then after an experience there, the light bulb went off again, and he said, I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
And one of the critical factors is that he was willing to assume personal financial risk, leaving an entity where there was a paycheck guaranteed to going to one where he had to earn his paycheck every day. But it was a calculated risk, and he would even say, it wasn't risk. He didn't consider it risky because he'd done his homework.
Correct.
But that is the differentiator. Many times, not everyone is willing or able to assume the risk. So maybe there aren't more entrepreneurs because there is risk. There's personal financial
tremendous risk.
Okay?
Yeah.
But I still say I'm at a university. We're in the human capital development business. I'd like to, if we can produce a lot of innovators, with some of them becoming their own entrepreneur at some point in their career, then we've been successful. And the ecosystem has benefited from what we've done to the human capital pipeline.
And I think that's really a great point, because when we sit and look at organizations, and we know we have tremendous challenges to face, and to create. I mean, to stay competitive in today's world, you can't be standing still. And so tapping into that human potential, that human creativity, is something I think that differentiates winners from also ran. Mm-hmm. And so I think what's really valuable about what you and the people over at the UWF Center for Entrepreneurship is doing is you're bringing this thinking, this way of being into the organizations that are there.
We're trying to be innovative.
Yes. What a concept. What a concept. But that's what you're doing. So I think it's a way of thinking. It's a way of being that the world is calling for, businesses are looking for, because things are happening so fast now that you've got to stay and engage and really tap into the people who work with you to figure out what's next. What's next. So it sounds like, the idea of entrepreneurship actually can be an extremely powerful method of kind of revving our economy and making America, I won't say that again, but making America competitive in the world, shall we say. I didn't say that. I almost did.
I think the original vision from Quint and the university, the original vision for the center talked about the life cycle of an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And in a discussion earlier today with some economic developers and other interested people about entrepreneurship in the region, we said, once an entrepreneur, if you would, starts a new business, then almost day two, they become an existing business. And they become part of that mix of businesses that we desire to see grow. So in economic development terms, there's this term called business retention and expansion. Yeah. So everyone's always interested in what can we do to help this business who seems to be doing well or may even have challenges, and they're employing people. How can we do things intentionally that help them grow their market share and their employment? So that's a fundamental economic development. And so that's what Quinn and others have, I think, recognized. There's a life cycle to enterprises.
Yes.
And so it's not just about getting them started, but it's what do we do with them 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
And how do you build that human, how do you remove the idea that only creative people can be creative, right? We have this box that we put creativity in. And I think, obviously I work in a field of branding and I work with some amazing, quote, creatives. But truly, what we have learned over the years, everyone is creative because everyone has a way, if you challenge them to look at things a little bit different, they will really come up with some ideas you'd never thought of. So I would think that would be part of what, you guys are going to be trying to do with businesses and through your workshops and seminars and et cetera, and I guess some of the programs at UWF.
Exactly. And I'd say as far as creativity and personalities, I think there are there are individuals that are inherently have more creative personality types. Mm-hmm. I think creativity is resident in everyone to some degree. And I think the action of bringing people together, and I would suggest that we do that intentionally with teams. Mm-hmm. So I think entrepreneurship is not an individual
it's a team
approach.
Sport.
It's a team sport.
Yeah.
As is innovation within the enterprise or within the corporate environment or the not-for-profit. It's a team sport. Mm-hmm. It's always a team sport. And so how can we intentionally use people's personalities and put them into teams that make sense for what we'd like them to accomplish and the dynamics that will occur within individuals.
And I think, too, Rick, one of the things we see when we're trying to do some creative brainstorming, if you will, is that the more diverse those groups are, the more new ideas come about. So oftentimes I think in organizations, people have a tendency to put this group and these, the engineers are over here and the business people, the sales people are over here. And then, God forbid we should bring any administrative people in. But when you really mix all of those people together and put issues on the table, they really do come up with a different kind of way of thinking.
Well, and that's what jumps out at me in this environment. And every environment that I've worked in is different. Every community is different. You take where you are at the time and say, this is how we do things intentionally to move us in the direction we want to go. So not unlike most universities, there are silos. There's silos at this university. That's neither bad nor good. But for what we're trying to do, and all the deans on the campus, from Tim O'Keefe and College of Business to Mike Huggins and College of Science and Engineering to Steve Brown and the arts, and all of them, Bob Dugan at the library, they all readily said, we want to do things with students across disciplines. So the whole concept of cross-disciplinary and teams, they bought into right away and have been extremely supportive. Now, it's our opportunity to then take that fundamental agreement in the creativity and team-based innovation, intentional team, and turn it into what kind of curriculum can we put together over what time frame that gets us to where we'd like to be and what we can be, producing the pipeline that I talked about, the pipeline of innovators.
Different kind of thinkers.
Yeah, because I don't know that we could probably agree not everyone, given their perspective, particularly an 18-year-old first semester freshman at the University of West Florida, they may not have thought about when they go into an environment. I don't care whether it's Starbucks or Panera Bread or Publix or whatever it might be, to look at that environment with the kinds of lenses that we'd like them to look at those environments with, to think about, well, what are the things that business is missing?
Correct.
Here's how we could do this differently. And that almost takes practice. It almost takes practice.
Yeah. And it sounds, and I understand you're going to be taking on this challenge, right? This fall.
A big challenge.
You go. But so there's going to be a course. Are you going to be teaching the course?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're going to be teaching a course this fall to incoming freshmen.
Teaching may be an embellishment, but
well, you're going to show up, all right.
I'm the lead faculty. Whose name is beside the course.
But so there'll be a course, which I think is really amazing that you're going to expose freshmen to these ideas. So tell me a little bit about the course. How is it structured? How is that course reflective of the philosophies that you're trying to promote through the Center for Entrepreneurship?
Well, I give a lot of credit to Dean Kim LaDuff and Martha Saunders, who's the provost, and others who have recognized that if we'd like for students to be successful at the University of West Florida, let's get off on the right foot with all of them. And so they've put together something they call the Academic Foundation Series. I may not have gotten the acronym exactly, but essentially it's providing a good academic foundation and I would say an assimilation into the campus, into other students. And there's a series of courses that each college on the campus is sponsoring, if you would, or leading. And it's doing a couple of things. I think first and foremost, it is providing an opportunity for the students to get to know each other. And I've thought about the class that I will have. Likely, according to Dean Kim LaDove, there'll be 25 students. And when we think about the geography that the university attracts students from, none of them may know anyone else in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you take a group of 25 students who don't know each other and build some sort of cohesion and a degree that they at least have come out of the semester knowing they've got 5 or 6 other students that they're really close to. And those other students have been their support during the semester and could, in fact, be their support throughout the 4 years that they're on campus. So we've built a course, and Dean LaDuff and the other faculty doing these courses have so latched on to the concept of creativity and team-based innovation that all the courses will have a flavor of those two important concepts. My course, my approach is going to be, okay, well, let's learn about these students. And we're actually, through our career services department, we're using the Myers-Briggs profile.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have each of the students complete a Myers-Briggs, bring their analysis in, and then we'll go over those with the class, talk about personality styles and talk about what this means, what does that mean? But then we're going to then, with Lauren Leffler from Career Services, we're going to intentionally create the innovation teams that they'll stay in throughout the entire semester. And so they'll do some really fun team building things.
Mm-hmm.
One is called the Marshmallow Challenge. If you've not read about the Marshmallow Challenge,
I don't know that.
Oh, it's fast. So there's some TED Talk.
Does it end up with s'mores?
It doesn't end up with s'mores, but it's sort of a combination of Italian and marshmallow.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Okay.
All right.
But it's uncooked. Okay. But it's a fun. It'll be one of the team building. We'll do a ropes course. Dr. Sean Bourne is going to lead the class to a ropes course. So it's intentional team creation, it's team building, and then it's team projects. And one of the projects is, we're calling it the Amazing Race. It is, in fact, how do we expose the students to a variety, there are about 18 or 19 resources around the campus, whether it be the library, counseling center, career services, and so forth, that they might need to avail themselves of the first week or their third year at the university. Okay. So we want them to know what those entities are, where they're located on campus. So we've come up, with the help of my graduate assistant, Jim Sparks, he's come up with a really creative way of giving them clues, and they'll, as a team, they'll go around the campus with each of the teams with their set of clues, and they'll try to figure out, what does this clue mean? Where are we going, and who are we going to see at that location? But they'll be exposed to those 19 different campus resources, and then ultimately they'll do an innovation project, and I'm still working on coming up with the 5. I think I have about 4 of them already set. And I will just share with you, one of them is Starbucks. So I won't tell any more than that.
Yeah, you'll have to come back and tell us how all this is.
I will tell.
Well, what I really like about what you're saying there is, by starting with Myers-Briggs, going back to your earlier point that there's different personalities. Well, those personalities in and of themselves create diversity. So I'm assuming you're going to match these teams in some way that you'll mix kind of different ways of coming at issues or challenges or whatever, so that they learn that not everyone looks at the world the way they do.
That's exactly. So they'll learn about themselves, and they may not, at 18, 17, 18, they may not have ever had the Myers-Briggs, gone through that process. Mm-hmm. So it'll give them some insights about themselves, but we will also want them to understand what other people are like. And it's not as though people are being hard-headed, like I've sometimes thought. That person's really hard-headed. Well, no. It's just the fact that they see the world a little differently. Yes. And so you have to find that blend, that nice blend. You don't want everyone to have the same Myers-Briggs outcome type on the team. So.
But, it's interesting in organizations that sometimes that happens. People hire oftentimes like themselves. People like themselves. And so you can go into organizations, and ones that we see that are doing some really cool things are people who are really, you've got these people over here that are really kind of introverts and, kind of internal processors. And these are the extroverts who got to talk about everything. And, and just the whole way that people interact and process has a big impact on whether or not organizations stay stuck, whether they can, Rick, really come up with any innovative ideas.
That's right. So I think I use the term intentional teams.
Yeah, I like that.
And Myers-Briggs, everyone would likely agree, Myers-Briggs is probably not the right prospective employee screening tool, but it is, in fact, those in the corporate sector that I've spoken with have said, we didn't use it for selecting employees, but we used it for putting employees on teams.
Correct. And if you're looking at trying to tackle certain specific types of issues or opportunities, the way you construct the teams who are trying to figure that out, it is important.
It's very important.
So this is going to be cool then. So ultimately, you're just doing it's an experiential type learning that, as a result of all this, at the end of the course, they should be able to do some really interesting debriefing for you.
I think we'll have at least 25 students coming out of the course going, that was really fun and I learned a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they probably made an A too. If they show up at class and do the things that they should be doing, which are not going to be hard to do, participate. You get a participation grade, but you have to be there to get a participation grade. So I think they'll really enjoy it. I have a number of guest lecturers. So faculty in the College of Business and elsewhere are coming to do guest lectures.
Oh, great.
That supplement, that sort of make a point about, well, here's where we're going and here's why this is important. So I'm so pleased that people are giving of their time. So I'm looking, it's a big, we're plowing a lot of new ground with this. So, but it's going to be fun, I think.
That is going, and I think what you'll see is would be really interesting to see a year from now these students and kind of track their progress and success, which I'm sure Kim will be doing, at the university.
Yes, and certainly, and so the other point I'm going to highlight, Quint and the university, when they put together the concept for the center, they wanted the center, as far as metrics, outcome, help increase enrollment at the university, and improve retention.
Retention, which I know is an issue everywhere.
So one of the ways you improve retention is you focus attention the first semester. How do we get these students off on the right foot and give them a good experience and give them a total exposure to the campus and let them build up a core group of people that they know well because they've been through experiences with those other students, and that's their support group for all of them as they go along. So I think the opportunity through doing these academic foundations is really going to be powerful.
That's going to be really, really powerful. Rick, what do you think as shifting a little bit? So first of all, I wonder if we have any students listen here, but maybe we have a couple parents. What's the name of the course or do you have a name yet?
We do have
How
a name.
Innovative is it? How creative is it, Rick?
I really don't know. And see, here's the interesting thing. I don't know that incoming freshmen, when they come to campus for their registration process, sign up for their courses, I don't know that this is one where they can read the description and go, I want to sign up for that one.
Yeah.
I think for this first attempt, I think Dean LaDuff and her staff, there's some intentionality about assigning. So they're assigned. Now, the course in my view, and as I promoted it, the creatives, the innovators, the entrepreneurs.
Can I come?
Yeah, you can.
I want to come be a part of that. Well, Rick, we're almost out of time. I do want, before we close out here, I know that you have the Center for Entrepreneurship has a workshop coming up August the 4th. Don't know if there's any room still left.
Plenty of room.
Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll close out with that information.
So the workshop on August the 4th is a terrific opportunity, one that the partners in the Center for Entrepreneurship, which are Studer Community Institute and the Florida Small Business Development Center, those were partners that in the original establishment of the center. And so it's a great opportunity to work with the partners in the center and with our donor, Quint Studer, on a topic that is exactly what we've been talking about. We're trying to relate the importance of taking a broad look at what we're calling entrepreneurship, but it is not, in fact, just the small box new startup company, but it is in the context of a larger culture of entrepreneurial thinking, of innovation thinking that can apply to any organization. And we have over 100 people registered.
Fantastic.
We're live streaming, so anyone who's some distance and can't get to the campus the morning of August the 4th can still sit at their computer and watch it. And we're very excited about the array, the mix of all kinds of enterprises that will be there, from recognized companies in the transportation business to students, to people in the faith-based community, to smaller companies, to larger companies. So it's really been gratifying to see the response to this first effort at expanding the definition of entrepreneurship.
I love
if you
it.
would.
Yeah. And again, I think, the real gift that you guys are bringing here is the idea that we all have that potential. We all have that potential to give the best of who we are. And I think if organizations know a little bit about what you're talking about, then maybe they can build a different kind of culture where people feel like their ideas are worth something and that they can bring forth those ideas, which we know when that happens, it creates a different kind of work environment.
Yeah,
so I think that's just a great,
it's
a great idea.
It's the culture is leadership, management, it's intentional teams, it's reward and recognition systems, and it's all those interesting things that I think particularly the faculty at College of Business and elsewhere on the campus can find a rich environment for new knowledge, generating new knowledge around these subjects and publishing the articles and papers and things. So I think it's a great.
Well, I can tell you in preparing for this conversation with you today, did some research and certainly it is a growing field. This idea of creativity, teaching creativity, using creativity to kind of launch or bring businesses to new levels, and of course, ultimately, some of those businesses, like you said, or some of those ideas can really be spun into new ventures and new. So, but I don't think we've ever thought about this idea of the creative entrepreneurial thinking embedded within the organizations, or at least I haven't heard a lot of that.
I would almost submit to you that we will not get the number of traditional entrepreneurs that we think we'd like to have unless we intentionally feed the pipeline like we're suggesting.
Correct.
Talk about people working across disciplines at the university. The university and Pensacola State, there are two big human capital pipelines.
Yes.
They're not the only, but they're two of the biggest. And so if we go through this, the recognition of ideation, creativity, and acting, looking at the environment, I think we're setting the stage, laying the foundation for, at some point, those students, the ones who are willing to assume risk, may become entrepreneurs down the road.
Yeah, and if they're not, they're going to be better employees. I can tell you that as an employer. That's what I'm looking at. Yeah. Rick, thank you. Thank you for sharing this time with us. And thank you if you're listening to us out there. We really appreciate your being here. And as I said earlier, as we started the program, you can listen to us weekly, Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time at coredialogues.businessradio.com. That's a little long. But also you can check out and listen to this session at Core Dialogues with an S, coredialoguesradio.com. And there's also a blog there where I'll give my reflections on what our conversation was today. We'll also create connections to Rick and to the University of West Florida Center for Entrepreneurship. And that way you can stay in touch with him. So I say thank you for joining us. I hope next week you'll come back and visit with us. We will be interviewing Lee Murphy. Lee is the CEO and founder of Inspira Health. He's out of Chicago, and his team is doing some amazing things around health and health care and looking at health from a little different perspective, not just the physical aspects of health, but also how the social, psychological, spiritual aspects contribute to people's health and well-being. So we'll look forward to seeing Rick. Rick. We'll look forward to seeing Lee next week here at Core Dialogues Radio. Look forward to seeing you then.